This is Fictional Mindbender. In my previous video, I compared Shogun's Mariko with Blue-Eyed Samurai's Mizu for how their Naginata skills depicted their similarities and differences in the characters' view of the world and their own psychology. And in this part 2, I'm going to explore a similar premise, but this time with Blue-Eyed Samurai's Akemi. Without going too much into detail again and repeating myself, Mariko is the daughter of a disgraced family and its only survivor, and thus has had to live with that shame for years, unable to take her own life per tradition because she has not been allowed to. Now, Akemi I've done previous videos on before, but the lowdown basically is that she too is a princess. However, she is more outwardly fiery about her situation of being in an arranged marriage and just a woman in the nobility circles of Japan. She openly criticizes the station of women in Japan as a whole, being disposable sex objects and brides/mothers-to-be in waiting. And even more so, she is willing to act on this and is willing to fight for what she believes in, but by the end of season 1 has indeed married the new shogun, but now intends to use that station as the shogun's wife to effect that change in Japanese society for Japanese women. Now, both women have a similar frustration, but that frustration comes from different places. Mariko also comments about the status of women in Japan and Shogun as, quote, always being at war. And the actress portraying the character, Anna Sawai, has said before in interviews that her character represents all women in Japan, implying the long history of sexism and how tradition has trapped Japanese women into certain specific roles and social expectations that they don't have the freedom to be not a part of, at least for a long time until the modern age. However, I don't think this is the reason for Mariko's views. She didn't protest, after all, about how women were treated in Japan before things got bad with her family. When everything was good, she was good. And Mariko makes no comment about Japanese women who are not mobility, even mocking Toranaga's rival, Ishido, for coming from a commoner's background when she herself was a nobleman's daughter. For me, that throws any comments the character might make about Japanese women being under siege under suspicion. Akemi, though, right from the start is shown to be about fighting the system for the cause's sake. She does several acts which actively show her struggling against that, from arguing with her mentor and father to running away from home and even being willing to fight, kill, and die by Mizu's side, whom she sees as being the ideal woman being free from such social constraints, at least until Mizu betrays her. And though I initially thought Akemi surrendering to the system through sex and marrying the shogun was her giving up on her goals, commenters in that video have changed my mind since then. And after watching it again, I do see the point of view that they mentioned about how that she never gave up on her goal, but rather expanded it and had to consent that there were obstacles in her way that she was just not going to break through. So therefore, she chose to try and change it from within, and that she could use that position to, again, affect potentially real change in Japan for women. Again, as I mentioned before in an earlier video, she's taken the Batman approach, as it were. The last point about Mariko and Akemi is their mental dispositions by the end of their respective series. Mariko enjoyed life to some extent through her relationship with Blackthorn, but she still always wanted to die and kept asking about it. Her life was marked by a sense of despair, and that she only saw death as the only way out of that despair, and that she only saw death as the only way out of that despair shows that she was never about fighting the system, but rather surrendering to it. And I'm not hating on a character, just that taking your own life over disgrace was a very common cultural trait among the Japanese noble circle, at the very least in that time. it was still part of a system, albeit the more extreme part of it. While not living on a bed of roses herself, Ikemi is defined by the desire to fight the system. Through surviving several encounters beyond her sheltered walls and learning valuable perspectives from prostitutes who existed outside of those walls, whom she also, by the way, names as her advisors, Ikemi adapts to the situation to maintain her goal and even expand upon it. Basically, that where one door closes, another one opens or can be opened. Ikemi never surrenders to the system, even though sometimes it seems like she did. It's a deception. But if you don't believe this, or perhaps if you do, leave your comments below. But otherwise, this is the Fictional Mindbender. You guys have a good day.